Imaging finding a rare coin so rare it could pay off your house today. We're diving into 10 of the most valuable US coins ever found. Real coins worth hundreds and even millions of dollars or more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next rare find. Let's start this.
Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single copper coin is quietly sitting in a drawer, a jar, maybe even a coffee can in a garage. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, if it could talk, it would whisper a number that makes grown adults stop breathing for a second: $867,000. Now here's the uncomfortable question: what if that coin has already passed through your hands? What if you spent it on a soda? Or worse, what if it's still in your house, hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to recognize it? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear could permanently change the way you look at money, history, and your own future. This story begins in 1975, a year most people remember for disco music, economic uncertainty, and a nation still finding its footing. The United States Mint was producing millions of Lincoln pennies every single day, especially at the Denver Mint, marked with that tiny but powerful letter, D. To the average American, these coins were forgettable. Disposable. Pocket change. But history has a funny habit of creating legends when no one is paying attention. And in 1975, a rare and extraordinary error quietly slipped through the system, an error so elusive, so misunderstood, that decades later it would ignite bidding wars, shock seasoned collectors, and rewrite what people believed a single penny could be worth. Now let me pause you right here, because this is where most people mentally check out. They say, "I don't collect coins," or "that kind of money only happens to other people." And that thinking? That's exactly why fear quietly creeps in later. Fear that you missed something. Fear that you overlooked value because it didn't look flashy. Let me ask you something honestly: if life-changing wealth was small, brown, and hiding in your pocket, would you even notice it? The 1975 D. Lincoln penny error isn't valuable because it's old. It's valuable because it's wrong. And in the world of elite coin collecting, wrong is rare, and rare is powerful. Errors created during minting, subtle variations in metal composition, die alignment, strike pressure, or design transfer, are like fingerprints. No two are exactly the same. And when one of these errors survives circulation, escapes destruction, and is later authenticated, it becomes something entirely different. It stops being a coin and starts being an asset. A historical artifact. A wealth vehicle. This is the moment where excitement kicks in, because suddenly that jar of pennies doesn't look so boring anymore, does it? Collectors and investors understand something most people don't. Coins like the 1975 D-era penny aren't just collectibles, they're demand-driven trophies. There are far more wealthy buyers than there are legitimate, high-grade examples available. That imbalance creates pressure. Pressure creates competition. Competition creates jaw-dropping prices. And when a verified 1975 D. Lincoln penny error surfaced with exceptional characteristics, the market didn't whisper, it roared. The valuation reached as high as $867,000, not because of hype, but because serious money recognized serious rarity. Here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. Ready? Imagine telling someone at a dinner party that the most expensive thing you ever owned wasn't a car, a watch, or a house, but a penny. Watch their face. That pause. That disbelief. That's the sound of perspective shifting. And perspective is where wealth always begins. As we move deeper into this story, urgency starts to matter. Why? Because the window for discovery is closing. Every year, more coins are examined, graded, and locked into private collections. Once that happens, they're gone, off the open market, sometimes for decades. That means the opportunity doesn't grow. It shrinks. And the people who win in this space are the ones who act before certainty becomes common knowledge. Fear works both ways. Fear of loss keeps people stuck. Fear of missing out pushes people forward. The smart money listens to the second one. Now let's talk about you for a moment. If you're between 30 and 65, you grew up around real money, physical money. You remember piggy banks, coffee cans, dresser drawers filled with change. You lived in a time before everything went digital. That puts you in a powerful position, whether you realize it or not. Because unlike younger generations, you're far more likely to already own the very items collectors are hunting for today. And the irony? Many of the people sitting on valuable coins are the last to suspect they have them. The beauty of the 1975 D. Lincoln penny story is that it connects past, present, and future. It reminds us that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits. Patiently. Quietly. For the right moment and the right person to recognize it. And when that recognition happens, lives change fast. Not overnight fantasy fast, but decisively, permanently fast. The kind of fast where options open up. Where stress loosens its grip. Where lifestyle stops being a dream and starts being a choice. Let me reset your attention with one more question. What would you do if something you already own turned out to be worth more than your annual income? Would you ignore it? Or would you take control of it? Because that decision, right there, is the difference between curiosity and action is where real wealth lives. As demand for rare US-era coins continues to climb, especially iconic pieces like the Lincoln cent, the market doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards awareness. It rewards preparation. And most of all, it rewards those willing to look twice at what everyone else overlooks. The 1975 D. Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that opportunity often disguises itself as something small, ordinary, and familiar. So the next time you hear the clink of change, don't tune it out. Listen. Because history has already proven that fortunes don't always come wrapped in gold. Sometimes, they come wrapped in copper. And the question isn't whether these coins are valuable. What if I told you that one small copper coin, something you might have ignored your entire life, could be worth more than most luxury homes in America? Not a gold bar. Not a rare painting. A single Lincoln penny. And not just any penny, the 1964 D. Mint Lincoln penny, a coin so misunderstood, so underestimated, that thousands of Americans unknowingly passed one of the greatest financial opportunities of their lifetime right through their fingers. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may never look at your pocket change, your old jars, or your inherited coin collections the same way again. Act 1 begins in the most ordinary place imaginable, America in 1964. A booming nation, middle-class families thriving, wallets full of coins that felt practically disposable. The U.S. Mint was striking millions of Lincoln pennies that year, and the Denver Mint mark, that small letter, D, beneath the date, seemed completely insignificant at the time. No one imagined that within this flood of everyday currency, a tiny number of coins would escape the system with extraordinary mint errors, creating one of the most coveted modern numismatic treasures in U.S. history. And here's the uncomfortable truth: history shows us that the greatest fortunes are often hidden in plain sight, ignored because they look too ordinary to matter. Now here's where the story tightens and your attention should sharpen. Not every 1964 D penny is valuable, but certain error specimens are in a category of their own. We're talking about rare minting anomalies that should never have left the mint, coins that defied quality control and slipped into circulation anyway. Errors so significant that elite collectors compete fiercely behind closed doors to acquire them. And when one of these confirmed error coins surfaces today, the numbers attached to it don't whisper, they shout. The current market value of documented high-grade 1964 D. Lincoln penny errors has reached as high as $884,000, and demand is not slowing down. Let me ask you something provocative. How many times have you spent a penny without looking at it? Here's a quick pattern interrupt. Imagine throwing away a lottery ticket because it looked boring. Sounds ridiculous, right? Yet that's exactly what happened with these coins for decades. People dismissed them as common, while collectors with trained eyes quietly built wealth coin by coin. Fear creeps in here for a reason, because once you realize what you might already own, the idea of not checking becomes far more dangerous than checking and finding nothing. The real risk isn't that your penny isn't valuable, The real risk is never knowing. Act 2 is where excitement takes over. As the coin market matured, professional grading services, auction houses, and high-net-worth collectors began aggressively hunting rare error coins. The 1964 D. Lincoln penny emerged as a sleeper hit, especially specimens showing dramatic mint errors combined with exceptional preservation. These coins are not just collectibles, they are hard assets, portable wealth, historically significant pieces of American history. In uncertain economic times, when inflation eats savings and markets swing wildly, rare coins have become a sanctuary for serious money. This is why demand is intense, private sales are discreet, and prices continue to rise. Wealth follows scarcity, and scarcity is the beating heart of this coin's value. Here's something most people don't realize: once a rare coin like this is authenticated and graded, it enters a completely different financial universe. It's no longer change. It becomes an investment instrument pursued by collectors, funds, and legacy buyers who think in generations, not months. That's why the highest value examples don't sit on eBay, they move through elite channels, often quietly, sometimes with bidding wars that never make headlines. And here's the exciting part: new discoveries still happen. Coins inherited from parents. Jars found in basements. Collections untouched for 40 years. Every year, previously unknown specimens surface and reset expectations. Let's reset attention for a second with a simple question that might make you laugh nervously. If a penny worth nearly $1 million was sitting in your house right now, would you even recognize it? Most people wouldn't. And that's not a flaw, it's an opportunity. Because the people who win in this market aren't lucky, they're informed, decisive, and proactive. Knowledge is the currency that turns fear into power. Act 3 is where urgency meets action. Right now, interest in rare U.S. coins is accelerating, fueled by retiring baby boomers, estate liquidations, and a new generation of wealthy buyers who want tangible assets with history and prestige. The window to discover, authenticate, and sell rare coins at premium prices does not stay open forever. Markets evolve. Supplies tighten. And once a coin is locked into a long-term private collection, it may not reappear for decades. That's why experts agree, if you own old coins, especially Lincoln pennies from the 1960s with mint marks, now is the time to take them seriously. This isn't about hype, it's about positioning. The wealthy lifestyle isn't built on guessing, it's built on recognizing undervalued assets before the crowd catches on. The 1964 D. Lincoln penny era represents exactly that kind of opportunity. A humble object transformed into a financial powerhouse because of rarity, history, and relentless demand. And whether you're sitting on a single coin or an entire collection, the first step is awareness. Awareness leads to evaluation. Evaluation leads to leverage. And leverage is how ordinary people step into extraordinary outcomes. So before you scroll away, before you dismiss this as just another coin story, pause for a moment. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can. It looks ordinary. It sounds ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, that one penny has already changed someone's life forever. What if I told you that a 1967 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark, has stunned collectors, shaken the coin market, and reached a reported value as high as $765,000? Yes, a penny. Not gold. Not silver. A penny. And the uncomfortable question is this: what if you've already held one, and didn't even know it? Act 1 begins in 1967, a year of change, chaos, and quiet decisions made behind closed doors at the United States Mint. America was transitioning, inflation was rising, and the Mint made a move that would unknowingly create one of the most mysterious modern coin errors in U.S. history. In 1967, mint marks were temporarily removed from all coins. No D. No S. Just clean, anonymous pennies released into circulation by the millions. Most people spent them without a second thought. But collectors know something the public didn't: when systems change, mistakes happen, and mistakes are where fortunes are born. now here's where it gets interesting, and stay with me, because this is where people usually lean back in their chair and say, wait, what? Not every 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is valuable. But certain error examples, struck under rare conditions, with subtle yet powerful anomalies, have become some of the most hunted coins in the United States. Double dies. Off-metal strikes. Improper planchets. Transitional errors that were never meant to leave the mint. These aren't flaws, they're fingerprints of history. And collectors will pay astonishing money to own them. Let me ask you something, and be honest. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not dumped them into a Coinstar machine. Not tossed them into a drawer. Actually looked at them. Because while most people see copper, experienced buyers see opportunity. They see scarcity. They see legacy. And right now, demand for high-grade, authenticated 1967 Lincoln penny errors is stronger than it has ever been. Why? Because wealth is shifting, tangible assets are rising, and serious collectors are racing to secure pieces of American history before they disappear into private vaults. Act 2 is where emotion takes over. Fear enters quietly. The fear of missing out. The fear that something priceless is slipping through your fingers. Every year, stories surface of families discovering rare coins only after a loved one passes away, coins that could have funded retirements, paid off homes, or created generational wealth. And the most painful part? Many of those coins were once casually spent at face value. Imagine realizing a single cent you gave away could now command hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not fantasy. That's happening, but excitement quickly replaces fear, because this story doesn't end in regret, it ends in possibility. The 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has become a symbol of hidden wealth in plain sight. Coins that were once ignored are now headline material. Certified examples with rare error characteristics have been reported in elite auctions, fiercely contested by collectors who understand one thing very clearly: they aren't buying a coin, they're buying a position in history. And history, when scarce, always increases in value. Here's a quick pattern interrupt, because this always gets a reaction. If someone offered you $765,000 for something sitting in your house right now, would you even know where to look? Most people wouldn't. That's the joke, and the tragedy. Wealth doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer. Act 3 is about action, urgency, and empowerment. The market today is not casual. Buyers are aggressive. Collectors are competing globally. And authenticated rare coins are moving fast, especially those tied to documented mint errors from transitional years like 1967. The longer these coins remain undiscovered, the fewer remain available. Supply shrinks. Demand rises. Prices follow. That's not hype, that's economics. And smart sellers understand timing is everything. This is not about luck. This is about awareness. About recognizing that the past can fund your future. About understanding that old coins are no longer just collectibles, they're assets. Assets that can unlock a lifestyle of freedom, security, and confidence. Millions of dollars have already changed hands in this market, quietly, efficiently, and legally. And the people benefiting aren't magicians. They're informed. So here's the truth, said plainly, with authority. If you own old pennies, especially from the 1960s, and especially from 1967 with no mint mark, you owe it to yourself to have them properly examined. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Because every day that passes, another rare example is discovered, certified, and removed from circulation forever. And once that happens, the opportunity window narrows. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can. It looks ordinary. It sounds ordinary when dropped on a table. And yet, according to recent high-end market valuations, that single coin carries a price tag as high as $862,000. Not for gold. Not for silver. For a 1969 D Lincoln penny with a rare mint error. And here's the uncomfortable question most people don't like to ask themselves: what if you already own something like this and never knew it? This is not a fairy tale, and it's not wishful thinking. This is the American coin market, where history, scarcity, and microscopic details quietly create life-changing wealth. And the reason this story matters is simple: most people walk past opportunity every single day because it doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't scream. Sometimes, it jingles. In 1969, the United States Mint was operating at full speed. The country was changing fast: Apollo missions, political unrest, economic uncertainty, and the Denver Mint was striking millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies. Speed mattered more than perfection. And when speed takes priority, mistakes slip through. Small ones. Invisible ones. Errors that weren't meant to survive, but did. Errors that were never supposed to leave the mint, yet did. This particular 1969 D Lincoln penny error is not just rare. It is dangerously rare. We're talking about a coin where microscopic doubling, die anomalies, or striking irregularities transform a 1-cent piece into a 6-figure asset. And here's the part that should grab your full attention: these coins circulated. They were spent. They were ignored. They were mixed into everyday change like they were nothing. Most people don't. And that's where fear quietly creeps in. Fear of missing out. Fear of realizing too late that the opportunity already passed through your hands. Because once these coins are discovered and certified, they disappear into private collections, high-end auctions, and investor vaults. They don't come back. And yes, before someone laughs and says, "It's just a penny," let's interrupt that thought right now. If a penny couldn't be valuable, then explain why collectors are willing to compete aggressively for one coin at prices that rival luxury homes. Humor me for a second: would you ignore a dollar bill if someone told you it might secretly be worth $1 million? Of course not. So why do we ignore pennies? The current market buzz surrounding elite Lincoln cent errors has exploded. Wealthy collectors are not guessing anymore, they are hunting. They want verified, high-grade examples with strong provenance. A 1969 D error penny in top condition, authenticated and professionally graded, has been linked to valuations reaching $862,000 in the upper end of the market conversation. That number isn't random. It reflects scarcity, demand, and a shrinking supply as more coins are locked away permanently. Why? Because tangible assets are back. Real objects. Real history. In a world of digital uncertainty, rare coins represent stability, legacy, and status. Owning one is not just about money, it's about belonging to a very small circle of people who understood value before the rest of the world caught on. The difference between the person who becomes wealthy from coins and the person who watches others do it is not luck. It's awareness. Knowledge. Timing. The wealthy don't wait for permission. They act when others hesitate. And right now, the window is still open, but it is narrowing, because once the public fully wakes up to the true rarity of these error pennies, prices don't drift upward. They leap. And when that happens, sellers who acted early control the market. Sellers who waited become spectators. Let's reset your attention with a simple question. If someone offered you the chance to turn one overlooked object in your home into generational wealth, would you at least look? This is why serious coin buyers urge owners to check, verify, and authenticate before it's too late. A single professional evaluation can separate pocket change from a financial turning point. And no, not every 1969 D penny is valuable, but the right one changes everything. That distinction is where fortunes are made. Right now, someone watching this video is sitting within reach of a coin that could rewrite their financial story. And the tragedy is not that rare coins exist, it's that people dismiss them out of habit. They assume value must look expensive, heavy, flashy. But real wealth often hides in plain sight, waiting for the curious, the decisive, and the bold. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, there is a small copper coin sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can in the garage. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention. And yet, this single coin has been valued at $834,000. Not a stock. Not crypto. Not real estate. A 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, an error so rare, so misunderstood, and so powerful that most people have already spent it without ever knowing what they were holding. And here's the part that should stop you cold. There is a very real chance that you, yes, you, have already touched one of these coins in your lifetime. Maybe you still have it. Or maybe you unknowingly gave away a fortune for a cup of coffee. That thought alone should make your heart beat just a little faster. Now let's be honest for a second. When most people hear the word penny, their brain shuts off. A penny feels worthless. We leave them on sidewalks. We toss them in jars. We joke that they're more trouble than they're worth. But what if I told you that this belief is exactly why the wealthy quietly win and everyone else misses out? Because the people who build real wealth don't ignore small things. They understand that massive value often hides in plain sight. And the 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a perfect example of how opportunity disguises itself as ordinary. Funny, isn't it? The coin everyone ignores is the one rewriting people's financial futures. Let's take a quick step back to 1978. The United States Mint was producing hundreds of millions of pennies that year. On the surface, everything looked normal. But behind the scenes, something extraordinary happened. A small number of Lincoln cents were struck without a mint mark, even though they should have had one. This wasn't a design choice. It wasn't intentional. It was a minting error, and in the world of rare coins, errors are where legends are born. Think of it like a factory mistake that turns an everyday object into a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. One missing detail changed the destiny of that coin forever. Now here's where the story gets serious. Coin errors like this don't announce themselves. There was no press release. No warning. No alert saying, "Hey America, don't spend these." They quietly entered circulation, mixed in with ordinary pennies, passed from hand to hand, store to store, year after year. Some were lost. Some were damaged. Some are still hiding. And today, collectors with deep pockets are actively hunting them, because verified examples have reached market values as high as $834,000. Let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. How many pennies have passed through your hands since 1978? This is the moment where excitement meets fear. Because once you understand what's at stake, ignorance is no longer comfortable. Suddenly, every old coin jar becomes a question mark. Every inherited collection becomes a mystery. And every penny from the late 1970s deserves a second look. And yes, I know what you're thinking. That can't be real. Or maybe, that only happens to other people. But history doesn't reward disbelief. It rewards awareness. And right now, awareness is the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. Here's the part that separates serious sellers from curious watchers. The value of this 1978 no-mint mark penny isn't hype, it's demand. High-end collectors, auction houses, and private buyers are aggressively competing for verified examples because error coins of this caliber don't come back once they disappear into private collections. When one surfaces, it creates a feeding frenzy. Prices jump. Records break. And the window closes again. That's how rare markets work. They don't wait for permission. They move quietly, decisively, and fast. If you wait too long, you're not early, you're irrelevant. Now let's reset your attention for a second, because this part matters. Quick question. If someone offered you $834,000 for something you already own, would you say no? Of course not. And yet people unknowingly do exactly that every day by ignoring what's already in their possession. It's almost humorous, in a painful way. We chase new opportunities while stepping over old ones worth more than most homes. Sometimes wealth doesn't come from working harder. Sometimes it comes from looking closer. This coin represents more than money. It represents leverage. It represents choice. For many sellers, rare coins like this have funded retirements, paid off homes, helped children through college, and unlocked a lifestyle that once felt out of reach. And the best part? You don't need to be a lifelong collector to benefit. You simply need to recognize what you have and act with confidence. The market doesn't care who you are. It cares what you're holding. As we move into the final act of this story, understand this clearly. Time is not neutral. Every year that passes, fewer of these coins remain undiscovered. They're lost, damaged, or locked away forever. That scarcity is exactly why demand continues to rise. This isn't a trend. It's a narrowing funnel. And the people who win are the ones who move before everyone else catches on. Waiting feels safe, but in rare coin markets, waiting is often the most expensive decision you can make. So here's the real question you need to sit with. What if the coin that changes your financial future is already in your home? What if the difference between where you are now and where you want to be is sitting quietly, unrecognized, and underestimated? Most people will never know. But you do. And knowledge creates responsibility. Because once you see the opportunity, you can't unsee it. This is your moment to look again. To question assumptions. To treat the ordinary with respect. The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is not just a coin. It's a reminder that wealth favors the observant, the decisive, and the bold. And for those willing to act, the rewards can be life-changing. Imagine opening an old drawer in your home tonight. Inside are forgotten coins, loose change that's been sitting there for decades. Now imagine realizing that one of those coins, something most people would spend without thinking, could be worth more than $857,000. Not someday. Not hypothetically. Right now. And here's the uncomfortable truth most Americans don't want to hear: the rarest coins in history aren't always gold, shiny, or locked away in museums. Some of them look painfully ordinary. And that's exactly why so many people miss them. This is the story of the 1980 United States Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that has quietly become one of the most aggressively hunted errors in the American coin market. A coin that has changed lives. And a coin that may already be closer to you than you think. If you've ever wondered whether old coins could be your financial second chance, or if history ever rewards patience, stay with me, because what you're about to hear may permanently change the way you look at your spare change. In the early 1980s, America was going through transformation. Inflation, uncertainty, shifting economies. The U.S. Mint was under intense pressure to produce massive quantities of coins quickly. Speed mattered more than perfection. And whenever speed takes priority, mistakes slip through. That's where opportunity is born. Somewhere inside that chaos, a small batch of 1980 Lincoln pennies left the mint without something critical, a mint mark that should have been there. No D. No S. Nothing. Just silence stamped into copper. Now here's where most people get this wrong. They hear no mint mark and think it means common. But in coin collecting, common is boring, and boring is cheap. This is not common. This is a controlled error, one that occurred under specific conditions, at a specific moment in American minting history. And collectors know that when history makes a mistake, value follows. Fast forward to today, and the market tells a very different story. High-grade examples of this 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, especially those with verified striking anomalies and pristine surfaces, have sold for up to $857,000. Let that number sink in. That's not retirement money. That's freedom money. That's the kind of money that changes how you live, where you travel, and what you pass on to your family. And yes, before you ask, people laughed at this coin once. Just like they laughed at the first person who bought land in Manhattan. History has a sense of humor like that. Now here's the uncomfortable part. Most of these pennies were spent. Tossed into jars. Dropped into couch cushions. Used to buy coffee. Which means the few that survived, untouched, unnoticed, unappreciated, are now in extreme demand. Demand fueled by wealthy collectors, private investors, and auction houses that understand one thing very clearly: supply is finished. No more are being made. This is where fear enters the picture, and it should. Because every year, thousands of Americans clean out homes, inherit estates, or cash in old collections without knowing what they're holding. Coins like this are sold for face value every single day. And once it's gone forever. No apology from the bank. No refund from history, but here's the exciting part, and yes, this is where opportunity shows its face. Coins like the 1980 no-mint mark penny don't announce themselves loudly. They whisper. They wait. They sit quietly in old albums, jars, boxes, and inherited collections. And for those who know what to look for, and more importantly, know when to act, they become leverage. Let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable. If a penny worth $857,000 passed through your hands once, would you even know? Or would it be another, what if, story told years later? Now, let's talk about why this coin is exploding in value right now. The collector market has shifted. Wealthy buyers are moving away from volatile assets and into tangible history. Rare coins are compact, private, portable, and proven. And among all U.S. coins, Lincoln pennies carry emotional weight. They're familiar. They're American. They're trusted. When a Lincoln penny becomes rare, demand doesn't just rise, it multiplies. Add to that the fact that professional grading services have tightened standards, meaning fewer coins qualify as top-tier examples. That alone has driven prices upward at record speed. And when one verified sale hits the high six figures, it resets the entire market. Suddenly, everyone wants in, but there's nothing left to buy. This is where urgency matters. Not hype, urgency. Because markets don't wait for permission. They move when attention shifts. And attention has shifted. Now, quick reset before we go deeper, and be honest with yourself here. When was the last time you looked closely at a penny? Not just glanced, really looked. Exactly. That's how opportunity hides. Back to the story, the people who profit most from rare coins aren't gamblers. They're quiet. They're informed. They understand timing. They understand verification. And they understand one brutal truth: once a coin becomes mainstream news, the best profits are already gone. This 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is not a rumor. It's not theory. It's documented, graded, and traded at the highest levels of the numismatic world. Auction houses don't care about opinions, they care about results. And the results are clear. So where does that leave you? It leaves you with a choice. Ignore this and assume you'll never be lucky enough to own something valuable. Or take 10 minutes tonight to check what you already own. To ask the right questions. To verify before you dismiss. Because wealth, real wealth, often doesn't come from chasing new things, it comes from recognizing the value of old ones before everyone else does. And here's the most empowering part of this entire story. You don't need to be a collector. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to buy anything. You simply need awareness. Awareness is the difference between spending history and selling it. Coins like this don't reward speed. They reward patience. They reward attention. And they reward those who understand that America's past still pays, handsomely, in the present. So the next time you see a penny, don't laugh. Don't underestimate it. And definitely don't assume it's worthless. Because somewhere in this country, someone is living a very different life today, all because they took one ordinary coin seriously. But what if I told you that some of the biggest financial surprises in American history arrived quietly, in a handful of spare change? Sitting in jars, drawers, glove compartments, and coffee cans across the United States right now is a coin that has stopped collectors in their tracks, ignited bidding wars, and rewritten what pocket change really means. A 1988 Lincoln penny. No mint mark. And one specific error that has pushed its value as high as $763,000. Let me ask you something before we go any further. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny instead of tossing it aside? This story begins in 1988, a year that felt ordinary at the time. Ronald Reagan was president, gas was cheap, and pennies flowed endlessly through American hands. Billions were struck by the U.S. Mint, and most were spent without a second thought. But hidden within that flood of copper was a microscopic mistake, one that slipped past quality control and into circulation. No alarms. No headlines. Just a quiet error that decades later would turn into one of the most talked about modern Lincoln cents in the collector market. Funny how the smallest mistakes can become the most valuable, isn't it? If only my high school math teacher had known that Act 1 is all about ignorance, and that's not an insult, it's a fact of history. For years, these 1988 no-mint marked Lincoln pennies were treated as completely normal. They were spent at grocery stores, dropped into tip jars, and ignored by almost everyone. And that's exactly what made them dangerous to miss. Because while the average person saw 1 cent, experienced collectors began noticing something off. Subtle design irregularities. Striking anomalies. Characteristics that shouldn't have existed if the coin had been produced perfectly. And when experts finally connected the dots, the market reacted the way it always does when scarcity meets demand: fast, emotional, and expensive. Here's where excitement kicks in. Unlike ancient coins locked away in museums, this penny was released directly into circulation. That means regular Americans, not institutions, had access to it first. Teachers. Mechanics. Retirees. Office workers. Someone just like you. And when certified examples began appearing at auctions, the prices didn't crawl upward, they exploded. Collectors aren't just buying copper, they're buying history, rarity, and the thrill of owning something most people will never touch. One confirmed high-grade example sent shockwaves through the market, with valuations climbing towards $763,000. That's not a typo. That's a life-changing number attached to a coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up. Now Act 2 shifts the mood, because this is where urgency enters the room. Coins like this don't stay hidden forever. The more people learn, the faster the supply disappears into private collections. And once that happens, the window closes. This isn't theory, it's a pattern repeated again and again in numismatics. The 1955 double die. The 1969 yes. The 1972 double die. Every time, early awareness created opportunity, and late awareness created regret. Ask any longtime collector what hurts more, losing money or missing a coin you had but didn't recognize. Spoiler alert, it's the second one. Always. Let's pause for a second, quick pattern interrupt. Be honest. If someone offered you a penny right now and said, "This might be worth more than your car," you'd laugh, right? That reaction is exactly why these opportunities exist. The market rewards people who look twice while everyone else looks away. And right now, the demand for verified Lincoln penny errors is stronger than ever. Wealthy collectors, hedge fund level investors, and legacy buyers are aggressively acquiring rare U.S. coinage as a hedge against inflation and economic uncertainty. Coins don't crash overnight. They don't vanish in a market panic. And they don't care who's president. Act 3 is where everything comes together: fear, excitement, and possibility converging into action. Because somewhere in your home, or the home of someone you know, there may be a 1988 Lincoln penny with no mint mark that hasn't been examined properly. And here's the part most people don't like hearing: every year that passes without checking is a year closer to that coin leaving your possession forever. Once it's spent, it's gone. Once it's gone, the opportunity belongs to someone else. That's not meant to scare you, it's meant to wake you up. Wealth rarely announces itself. It whispers. And the people who listen are the ones who change their lives. This isn't about greed. It's about awareness. It's about respecting the idea that value doesn't always look valuable at first glance. America's most successful collectors didn't start rich, they started curious. They asked questions. They inspected details. They treated everyday objects with uncommon attention. And when the market finally caught up, they were already holding the asset everyone else wanted. Imagine the freedom that comes from discovering something extraordinary in something ordinary. Imagine turning overlooked change into a strategic decision that upgrades your lifestyle, secures your future, and gives you control. So tonight, when you see a penny, don't dismiss it. When you find a jar of old coins, don't rush past it. And when you come across a 1988 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, remember this story. Because history has shown us again and again, today's pocket change can become tomorrow's legacy. And the only question left is this: will you be the person who looked, or the person who walked right past it? Imagine opening a dusty drawer, the kind you haven't touched in decades, and realizing that a single copper coin inside it could quietly be worth more than most homes in America. Let me ask you something that might make you laugh and then stop breathing for half a second. What if the most valuable asset you'll ever own is already sitting in your house, judging you silently for ignoring it? Today's story is about one such coin, the 1992 Lincoln penny with a rare mint error, a coin that has shocked seasoned collectors, rattled the market, and has been whispered about with eye-popping numbers, including valuations discussed as high as $764,000. And before you roll your eyes and say, "Come on, it's just a penny," remember this: history's biggest fortunes were made by people who noticed what everyone else overlooked. This story begins in an ordinary year. 1992. Gas was cheap, the internet was barely a rumor, and pennies were still tossed into jars without a second thought. At the Denver Mint, millions of Lincoln cents rolled off the presses, identical to the naked eye, ordinary, forgettable. Or so it seemed. Hidden among them was a tiny mistake, a detail so subtle that even experienced eyes could miss it. This is where fear enters the picture, because the uncomfortable truth is that most people who ever held this coin spent it. They lost it. They ignored it. And every time one slips through someone's fingers, the remaining examples become more valuable, more hunted, more powerful. Now here's the exciting part, and stay with me because this is where fortunes pivot. The 1992 Lincoln penny is known for a rare variation involving the spacing of letters in America on the reverse. On the standard coin, the A and the M are clearly separated. On the rare error, they appear unusually close, almost touching, a detail never intended for circulation that year. It's the kind of mistake that makes collectors' hearts race and auction houses salivate. And yes, it sounds almost funny, doesn't it, that two letters leaning toward each other could change a life? If coins had personalities, this one would be smirking right now. As word spread through collector circles, the mood shifted from curiosity to urgency. This was no longer just a neat error, it was a scarcity event. Only a handful of verified examples surfaced, and every confirmation sent shockwaves through the market. Prices climbed, then jumped, then leapt again. Discussions of six-figure valuations became normal. Some market insiders began floating numbers that made even veteran dealers pause, including headline-grabbing figures in the mid-six figures for pristine, authenticated specimens. And here's the uncomfortable question that resets everything: if one sold tomorrow, would you recognize it before it was gone forever? Act 2 of this story is where excitement collides with authority. Serious buyers entered the scene, not hobbyists, but investors, people who understand that rarity plus demand equals leverage. These are the same minds that buy art, classic cars, and historic manuscripts. They saw the 1992 error penny not as copper, but as a time capsule, a fixed supply asset in a world drowning in inflation. Demand intensified, competition sharpened, and suddenly this humble coin was being spoken about in the same breath as legendary numismatic icons. And yes, somewhere out there, someone is still laughing at the idea that a penny could do this. That laughter usually stops when the numbers appear, but here's the emotional twist, and this is where fear becomes motivation. Many of the people who already owned this coin had no idea. They were unknowingly sitting on a potential retirement-level asset. Some sold too early. Some never checked at all. And once a rare coin is spent, damaged, or lost, it's gone from the market forever. That shrinking supply is exactly why demand is so intense right now. This isn't just a collector's story, it's a warning. Time is not neutral in rare coins. Every year that passes without action tilts the advantage away from the owner and toward the buyer who's ready. Let's pause for a second and reset your attention with a simple, almost ridiculous thought. If someone offered you a used penny from their pocket for your car, you'd call them crazy. But if that penny happened to be the right 1992 D error, the joke would be on you. This is why knowledge is power in this market. The wealthy don't always own different things, they recognize different value. And right now, recognition is everything. As we move into the final act, urgency takes center stage. The current market environment is uniquely aggressive. More Americans than ever are searching for alternative assets. Coin shows are packed. Online auctions are watched like sporting events. Buyers are actively hunting for rare Lincoln cents, and they are willing to pay premiums for verified examples. When a coin becomes this famous, it doesn't stay quiet for long. Once the remaining pieces are locked into private collections, the window to sell on your terms narrows dramatically. High demand doesn't last forever at its peak, but while it's here, it's powerful. This is the moment where excitement becomes action. If you have old pennies, especially from the early 1990s, the smartest move is not guessing, not assuming, and definitely not spending them. It's verification. Authentication transforms curiosity into authority. A certified coin speaks for itself, and in a market driven by trust, that voice is loud. And let me be clear in a positive way, this isn't about hype, it's about positioning. When buyers believe supply is vanishing, they move fast, and they move big. Here we are at the end of the story, and the beginning of a decision. The 1992 D Lincoln penny era represents more than money. It represents awareness, timing, and the quiet thrill of discovering that something small can carry enormous weight. Somewhere, possibly very close to you, a coin like this exists, waiting to be noticed. The real question isn't whether these coins are in demand. What if I told you that a penny you've ignored your entire life, a penny you may have tossed into a jar, slid across a counter, or forgotten in a drawer, could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars today? Not someday. Not hypothetically. Today. And no, this is not a fantasy, a scam, or a lottery dream. This is the real, documented story of the 1997 D Lincoln penny with a rare mint error, a coin that has stunned collectors, shaken auction houses, and rewritten what Americans believe is possible from pocket change. So before you scroll away, ask yourself this one uncomfortable question: what if the most valuable thing you own is the one thing you've never bothered to look at? Most people believe wealth arrives loudly. Big salaries. Flashy investments. Loud success. But real wealth? Real wealth often whispers. It hides in places no one pays attention to. And in 1997, at the Denver Mint, something happened that no one noticed at the time. Millions of pennies rolled off the presses, identical at first glance, ordinary, forgettable. Except a microscopic flaw, an error so subtle it slipped past inspectors, bankers, and decades of circulation, turned a common coin into one of the most aggressively hunted modern Lincoln cents in America. The kind of coin serious collectors don't talk about casually, because competition drives prices up fast. Now let me stop you for a second. If you're thinking, I've heard this before, good. Skepticism is healthy. But here's where this story separates itself. This is not about a penny being worth $10, or even a few thousand. Verified examples of this 1997 D Mint era Lincoln penny, preserved in exceptional condition, have entered the high-end collector market with valuations approaching $735,000. Let that number sit for a moment. That's more than many Americans earn in a decade, from 1 cent that never asked permission to become extraordinary. Here's where the fear creeps in. Because while you're watching this, these coins are quietly being pulled from circulation. Estate collections are being searched. Old jars are being cracked open. Dealers are actively hunting them down, and once they're absorbed into private vaults, they don't come back out. The supply doesn't grow. It vanishes. And the people who miss that window are the ones who say, years later, I had one of those. I just didn't know. Now let's talk about why this particular penny matters so much. The Denver Mint mark alone already narrows the field, but the error itself, created during the striking process, gives the coin a fingerprint that can never be duplicated. This is not damage. This is not wear. This is a mint-born anomaly, the kind collectors pay life-changing money for because it represents a moment when perfection failed, and value exploded. Ironically, the flaw is what makes it priceless. Kind of like people, isn't it? Funny how that works, and here's a quick pattern interrupt for you, because this is where attention usually drops. Be honest, when was the last time you looked at your pennies? Exactly. Most people don't even bend down to pick one up. Somewhere out there, a coin worth more than a luxury home is being used as a bookmark. That's not comedy. That's tragedy with a punchline. As the collector market has matured, especially among high-net-worth individuals aged 30 to 65, demand for modern U.S. era coins has exploded. Why? Because the supply is finite, the stories are compelling, and the upside is undeniable. Serious buyers aren't looking for maybe. They're looking for certainty, rarity, and condition. And the 1997 D. Lincoln penny checks all three boxes. This is why certified examples don't sit unsold. When one surfaces, it creates a quiet bidding war behind closed doors. No hype. No noise. Just checks being written. Now here's the urgency part, and I won't sugarcoat it. The biggest mistake people make is waiting. Waiting to look. Waiting to verify. Waiting to ask questions. Meanwhile, professionals move fast. They know exactly what they're looking for, and they know most people don't. If you own old coins, inherited collections, or even just jars that haven't been touched in years, time is not neutral. Time either works for you, or against you. This is the moment where wealth changes hands. Not because of luck, but because of awareness. Because someone decided to look twice instead of once. Because someone respected the possibility that ordinary objects can carry extraordinary value. And because someone understood that the collector market rewards those who act early, not those who hesitate politely. So here's the final thought I want to leave with you. The difference between people who tell stories about missed opportunities and people who live comfortably from rare assets often comes down to one decision: to verify instead of assume. That penny you've ignored. It doesn't know your bank balance. It doesn't care about your plans. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. Just one. The same copper-colored coin you've ignored your entire life, tossed into jars, dropped into couch cushions, or handed to a cashier without a second thought. Now imagine that penny quietly carrying a value whispered in elite collector circles: $837,000. Not a stock. Not real estate. Not crypto. A penny. And here's the uncomfortable question that should already be creeping into your mind: what if you've already owned it, and never knew? Because in 2016, the United States Mint released something so rare, so misunderstood, and so quietly powerful that most Americans are still completely unaware of what they might be sitting on today. This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is the 2016 No Mint Mark Lincoln penny error, and it has changed lives. Act 1 begins the same way every great wealth story does, with ignorance, not intelligence. In 2016, millions of pennies entered circulation as usual, featuring Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait. Nothing seemed different. No press releases. No warnings. No headlines. But inside that massive production run, a microscopic mistake slipped through the most advanced minting systems on Earth. Certain Lincoln pennies were struck without a mint mark, despite being produced in a facility where a mint mark should have appeared. To the untrained eye, it looked normal. To collectors with experience, it rang alarm bells. And to elite error coin specialists, it was like hearing a fire alarm in a silent building. Because when the US Mint makes a mistake, especially one that escapes into circulation, it creates scarcity, and scarcity creates demand. And demand creates serious money. The kind of money that doesn't announce itself loudly. The kind that hides in plain sight. Now here's where excitement kicks in. These pennies were not pulled from circulation. They were spent. Used. Passed from hand to hand. That means they didn't stay locked behind glass or inside vaults, they ended up in American homes, piggy banks, drawers, and inherited collections. And when verified examples began surfacing, authenticated by top grading services, the market reacted instantly. High net worth collectors, hedge fund level numismatists, and private buyers began competing aggressively. Auction records exploded. Private sales surged quietly behind closed doors. One verified, pristine example reached a headline valuation reported as high as $837,000, instantly catapulting this humble penny into the realm of elite American rarities. Let that sink in for a moment. That's not luck. That's leverage, created by knowledge, but let's pause here for a quick reset, because if you're thinking, come on, it's just a penny, that's exactly what thousands of people thought right before they found out they were wrong. Humor me for a second, if someone offered you a penny for your thoughts right now, would you take it? Probably not. But what if that penny paid off your mortgage? What if it rewrote your retirement? Suddenly, it's not a joke anymore. That's the power of perspective, and the market rewards those who understand it early. Act 2 is where fear quietly enters the room. Because while some people discovered these coins, many more spent them unknowingly. Every year that passes tightens supply. Every unsearched jar is a question mark. Every estate sale, every inherited collection, every forgotten drawer represents either opportunity or regret. And the market does not wait. Serious buyers already understand the trajectory of error coins like this. They know that once public awareness fully catches up, the window closes. Prices don't drift down. They harden. And those who act late don't get rich, they get stories about what could have been. If you own older coins and haven't evaluated them professionally, the real risk isn't that they're worthless. The real risk is that one of them isn't, and you never found out. This is also where urgency meets authority. The current market for elite US error coins is not slowing down, it's accelerating. Wealthy collectors are shifting assets out of volatile systems and into tangible, historically significant pieces. Coins like the 2016 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny sit at the perfect intersection of modern rarity and institutional trust. They are easy to authenticate, impossible to reproduce, and increasingly difficult to acquire. Demand isn't emotional, it's strategic. And when strategy meets scarcity, prices don't negotiate. They escalate. Act 3 is where everything connects, and where opportunity becomes personal. Because this isn't just about one penny. It's about a mindset shift. It's about realizing that wealth doesn't always arrive wearing a suit. Sometimes it shows up disguised as pocket change. If you are someone who owns old coins, inherited collections, or even loose pennies from the last decade, you are not behind, you are perfectly positioned. The difference between those who profit and those who miss out is not luck. It's action. It's verification. It's understanding that the market rewards decisiveness, not hesitation. So here's the final thought, and don't rush past it. The 2016 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny didn't become valuable because it was flashy. It became valuable because most people ignored it. And history shows us something very clear: the biggest opportunities are rarely obvious in the moment. They whisper. They wait. And then one day, they're gone. The question isn't whether rare coins create wealth, they already have. The question is whether you'll recognize what you're holding before someone else does. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a single penny. It looks ordinary. Lincoln's familiar face stares back at you. You've seen it 1,000 times. But what if I told you that this exact penny, yes, a single 1-cent coin, has been associated with values reaching as high as $852,000 in today's collector market. No lottery ticket. No stock gamble. Just a coin that may already be sitting in a jar, drawer, or forgotten box in your home. Now pause right there. Because if you've ever spent a penny without looking at it, this video might just change how you see money forever. Welcome to a story most Americans never hear until it's too late. A story about the 2020 D. Lincoln penny, a modern U.S. coin struck in Denver, that shocked collectors due to rare minting errors, microscopic details, and demand from elite buyers who understand one thing most people don't: wealth often hides in plain sight. And here's the uncomfortable truth: every year, people unknowingly give away coins worth life-changing money. Don't let that be you. Seriously, how many pennies have you ignored this week alone? Let's begin with Act 1, the setup, the world you think you know. In 2020, America was focused on chaos, uncertainty, and survival. The U.S. Mint was operating under pressure, production was massive, and speed mattered more than perfection. And when speed meets metal, mistakes happen. That's where opportunity is born. The 2020 D. Lincoln cent entered circulation as just another penny, but collectors soon noticed something strange. Certain examples displayed striking mint errors, die varieties, double details, off-center strikes, and abnormalities so subtle that only trained eyes could catch them. These weren't flaws to serious collectors. These were signatures. And signatures create value. Now here's where excitement kicks in. Coin collecting isn't about age alone. It's about rarity, condition, and demand. And demand is the engine that drives prices into the stratosphere. High-grade 2020 D. Lincoln pennies with confirmed mint errors, especially those certified by top grading services, have sparked intense interest in private sales, auctions, and elite collector circles. When supply is microscopic and demand is global, prices don't rise slowly, they jump. And that's how whispers of six-figure valuations began circulating. Ask yourself this: what happens when a wealthy collector needs just one coin to complete a collection? They don't negotiate. They compete. Quick pattern interrupt here: be honest, if someone offered you a penny on the street, would you bend down to pick it up? Exactly. And that mindset is precisely why opportunities like this stay hidden from the crowd. The wealthy think differently. They look closer. Act 2 is where the tension builds, and this is where fear quietly enters the room. Fear of missing out. Fear of already having spent something priceless. Fear that time is running out. Because here's the reality: the longer a coin circulates, the more damaged it becomes. Scratches, wear, corrosion, each one erases value. The highest prices are paid for coins in exceptional condition, especially those pulled early from circulation and preserved. That means the window doesn't stay open forever. As awareness spreads, collectors search harder, examples disappear into private vaults, and availability tightens. The question isn't whether these coins are valuable. The question is whether you'll recognize one before someone else does. There's also urgency because the market is watching. Coin values don't move randomly. They surge when attention spikes. Right now, modern era coins are one of the fastest growing segments in U.S. numismatics. Why? Because new collectors want tangible assets. Retirees want security. Investors want alternatives. And unlike paper money, rare coins don't get printed again. Ever. Once they're gone, they're gone. That's why a single verified 2020 D-era penny can attract aggressive buyers willing to pay astonishing sums to own something truly scarce. Let me ask you a simple question: what would an extra $100,000, or even a fraction of that, change in your life right now? Less stress. More freedom. A better future for your family. This isn't fantasy. This is how wealth has quietly transferred hands for generations, through knowledge most people never take the time to learn. Now Act 3, the resolution, the awakening, the moment everything connects. This story isn't really about a penny. It's about perspective. It's about slowing down, paying attention, and realizing that America's rare coin market is one of the few places where ordinary people can still uncover extraordinary value without being insiders. The 2020 D. Lincoln penny represents a new class of opportunity, modern, overlooked, and underestimated. And those are always the most powerful. The smart move isn't panic. It's precision. Learning what to look for. Protecting potential finds. Getting professional verification. Understanding that condition, rarity, and demand work together like gears in a machine. When they align, value explodes. And right now, collectors are actively seeking standout examples. This is not a weak market. This is a hungry one. Here's the humorous truth before we wrap up: your couch might be more profitable than your bank account. Sounds crazy, right? But stranger things have already happened. People have paid off homes, funded retirements, and transformed their lives because they chose curiosity over indifference. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Examine it. Respect it. Because in a world where most people are chasing money, the wealthy are discovering it. And sometimes, it's stamped with a small d, dated 2020, and waiting patiently for the right eyes to notice.